Hi, everyone. I am Kenzie Mastro. I am the Food and Lifestyle Editor for She Knows. We are so thrilled to be partnering with our friends Soy Connection today to bring you all SK conversations simplifying sustainability. We've got a really great lineup planned for everyone. We're going to share some expert advice on how to live a more environmentally conscious lifestyle, from the food we eat to the simple, eco-minded habits we can incorporate into our everyday lives. Later, we'll have a segment with Chef Joel Gamoran, and he's going to show us how to get eco-friendly in the kitchen while making some super tasty soy chorizo tacos. We do have his recipe down in our resource section, so make sure to take a look and get your ingredients ready so you can cook along with us. Now, it looks like we have an incoming call from the CEO of United Soy Board, Polly Ruhland.
I'm Polly Ruhland, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at the United Soybean Board, and as such, I work on behalf of U.S. soy farmers to advance the sustainability of agriculture. U.S. soy farmers comprise a high number of farmers in the U.S., so we do research, education, and promotion programs to help advance agriculture sustainability. We have a 78 farmer member board of directors, and those directors and our subsidiary brand, Soy Connection, work to increase consumer and food industry knowledge of U.S. soy as a sustainable and nutritious ingredient providing food, and also fuel and fiber and feed for communities around the world globally. So my mission as USB's CEO is to support and enhance the sustainability of U.S. soy farmers. So during this pandemic, we've all witnessed the strength and resilience of our essential workers who keep our country running and provide the essentials of what we need to survive. And more than ever, it's reinforced what we know as a society, what we know to be true, that farmers are a critical part of the essential infrastructure. So during these uncertain times, a dependable food supply is really more important than ever. So my background is in marketing communications and agricultural leadership, and that background prepared me very well to be USB's CEO. Any multifaceted career can be a good preparation for a CEO job. Now, prior to USB, I was the CEO at the Cattlemen's Beef Promotion and Research Board, and in both jobs, I've worked with farmers and ranchers across the U.S., in fact, in my whole career, that's who I've worked for, nonprofit farmer boards. And I'm very proud of that population and proud to work for what I consider to be a shrinking population, and in some ways, a population that needs representation in our society today. I encourage failure. That's what I tell a lot of young women who come to me and ask for advice. I say, whether you're an executive or a content creator or a farmer, there isn't a secret sauce. There isn't a single way to success. Every person is different because their skills and their gifts are different. So it always takes diligence, it takes perseverance and patience. It takes a really forgiving sense of humor, but most of all, it takes the willingness to be fearless and fail regularly and grow and try again. So when we talk about the specific area of sustainability and the diverse voices that need to come into play when we're talking about how to enhance agricultural sustainability, I'm really proud to be representing U.S. farmers because U.S. soybean farmers are part of the climate solution in this country and around the world. U.S. farmers in general employ strategies like conservation tillage, crop rotation. They plant cover crops to maintain soil health and maximize the consistent quality of their harvests. Modern tools that we use like moisture sensors, smart irrigation, autonomous and GPS-enabled tractors, drones and satellite imagery of fields helps U.S. soybean farmers produce more soy from the same ground and even reduce the use of natural resources and crop inputs. So when you realize that to be a farmer, you don't just have to tackle environmental sustainability. You don't just have to make sure that the land that you steward will be there for your children and your children's children. But those farmers also steward social and economic sustainability in their communities. Many folks are surprised to learn that 97% of farms in the U.S. are family-owned. Farmers are trusted stewards of the U.S. food supply, and they have a high trust among consumers. In 2021, we know that 78% of consumers rank farmers as the most trusted members of the food supply chain to ensure food safety, and nearly 4 in 5 consumers feel very or somewhat positively about U.S. farmers, showing that the nation rightly believes in the value of farmers and believes in it just as strongly as we do here at USB and as I do. And while we're talking sustainability, we all know that environmental sustainability isn't the only part of successful sustainability. We know that social and economic sustainability, and that is community sustainability, is also critically important. And farmers are the backbone of their communities. They volunteer in their communities at a higher rate. They volunteer and serve in the military at a higher rate than the normal population. So they produce a nutritious crop for their families and for your family. Important points to remember as we launch into this session. I know you're really going to enjoy hearing from Anne, Laurie, and Joel about living sustainably and how sustainable food originates at the farm. So enjoy.
We want to hear from all of you guys tuning in as well. Make sure to tag us at She Knows and use the hashtags SK Conversations and Simplifying Sustainability to let us all know how you're simplifying sustainability at home. So next up, I'm super excited for this. We have Anne Briggs. She's the farmer and influencer at Anne of All Trades. She'll be joining us to discuss the important role that regenerative agriculture plays in feeding our growing population. She's also going to be talking about how she changed her lifestyle to contribute to a more sustainable future. So everyone, please welcome Anne.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, nice to see you again. So before we get too deep into our chat, I think the term regenerative agriculture is kind of a new term for a lot of people. So would you mind explaining what it is and the important role it plays in feeding our population?
Absolutely. So I think for a long time, farming was considered, we just put some seeds in the ground, we get whatever we can take from it. And it was more of a take. Mm-hmm. As our population has grown, we've realized that actually continuing to just take is going to produce a lot of problems. Like as our population continues to grow, as other concerns become an issue for the planet. And so with regenerative agriculture, you just want to look at the 2 words. Regenerative means to regenerate or to create new. And so that's exactly what we try to do as farmers. We think about the earth or our land, even if we own it, we're borrowing it from future generations. We want to leave it, anything that we borrow, we want to, return it better than we found it. So we're trying to regenerate growth in the soil. We want to, foster healthy growing methods so that we can grow more food, so that we can basically guarantee our future on this planet.
Yeah, I love that. Leaving the earth better than we found it. That's such an easy way to think about it.
Yeah.
So before building the career that you have now, you worked in tech for quite a few years. Was there one defining moment that made you think like, okay, I need to change my lifestyle? Or was it more of a gradual process?
There was definitely that moment, but the actual change was very gradual. Mm-hmm. I worked in tech for a long time. I commuted an hour and a half both ways to work. I would sit at a computer desk. I'd leave the house when it was dark, and I got home when it was dark. And the job that I had and the team that I was working on just didn't offer me the fulfillment that I wanted out of life. And I was suicidally depressed. And I was just like, hey, like something's got to give. I can't keep going on like this. And so I was like, took stock of my life, and I was like, you know what, I would be willing to take an extreme pay cut to be able to get some of my life back. And so I just kind of looked around and thought about ways that I could do that. So I planted a garden because I figured then I could save some money on groceries. But I mean, we still lived in the middle of the city. It wasn't like I could just suddenly become a farmer. We had a quarter of an acre and a suburban house, dug up the backyard, turned it into a garden. That was my first step. The first garden didn't go super well, but I learned from that garden, and the next one I did better. But then during the wintertime, I learned how to bake bread and do other kinds of things just from scratch, just like I would have to do if I was on a farm. I wanted animals. I wanted all these things, but because we lived in the city and there was an HOA and all those things, I had to find ways around that. So what was a smaller version than livestock, I started raising rabbits because I was like, surely I could learn about raising animals from raising a small animal that I could do.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Awesome. So what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you face being a woman in a very male-dominated industry, and how do you overcome them?
I mean, it's kind of unbelievable the amount of unsolicited advice that I get. Even more unbelievable, like the amount of incorrect unsolicited advice that I get, and also just, people not taking me seriously, not viewing me as an authority on things that I've literally worked my fingers to the bone to learn and to become an authority on. And so that can be really frustrating. I mean, as a female running my own farm, my husband is always the person that people look to ask questions of. And it's like, I mean, he works in tech still. He has no idea.
Right.
And, it could be, I could allow that to just constantly frustrate me. I'm putting content out there every single day. There are comments and all these things every single day. But really, for every one crappy comment, there are 100 supportive ones from other women who are like, well, we look up to you as an example, or dads who are like, hey, thanks so much for being this example to my daughters. And Theodore Roosevelt has a great quote. I won't do the whole thing, but it's basically, it's not the critic's opinion which counts. It's the person in the arena with a bloody face that matters, because they're the ones who are making the mistakes, the failures. They're also the ones that get to celebrate the successes, and they know what those successes feel like because they've gone through the hard parts. And so, overcoming them really is just doing my very best to be a good example, because it's unbelievably powerful to see someone who looks like you doing something that you never expected that you could do. That's literally all you need, is just the permission of being like, oh my gosh, that's possible. All right, I want to do that too.
Yeah, I love that. It's so inspiring too. So I think we're all really curious to hear about what an average day on your homestead looks like. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how much time do you have? So I wake up usually around 5:30 a.m. I come down to the barn and I milk my animals. I milk dairy goats during the off season of the cows, and then the cows during the off season of the goats. I feed all of the other animals, the dogs, the barn cats, the bunnies, the cows, let out the chickens, collect all the eggs. I fill all the milk orders for the day, get all the egg orders that are, that need to get ready. And then kind of just make sure that all of the fences are good. I take all of the animals that have slept in the barn for the night. I take them out to pasture with the livestock guardian dogs, and I make sure that everyone's set out there. And then I'm back in my office at 7, just in time to kick off a little focus hour that we do. As we offer this as a service with my business, where we are like, hey, what's one thing that's really hard to do every day? Let's do it together for an hour. So that kicks off my workday. And then it's basically just a regular 9-to-5 job until there's some kind of farm chaos that interrupts. And then, we go out and deal with that, and then we come back. I would love to say that my workday actually is 9 to 5. It's generally that 7 a.m. until whenever the heck things get done.
Right.
But in an ideal world, I would cut off from work around 3, start doing some stuff around the farm, doing, moving stuff with my tractor, working in the garden, whatever else, and then picking stuff for dinner, going inside and cooking dinner for my family. And then I'd come back down to the barn after dinner, do all of the evening milking, put the chickens away, make sure that all the fences are tight and everyone's good to go. The livestock guardians dogs get fed and put with the baby animals so that they can protect them overnight. And then I go up and fall in bed and start it all over the next day.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot in a day for sure. So how do you balance, because you're also a big social influencer, a lot of people are interested in seeing, what this lifestyle looks like. How do you balance creating content and doing social media while caring for all these animals in your homestead?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy. You need to, if you're gonna have a full-time job and try to have a homestead at the same time, you need really good systems in place. You need to have your time organized, and also just the things that you do organized enough that you can get it all done in an efficient manner. You have to have backups for your backups, and then backups for those backups. Often I have to be so clear about the things that I'm doing, so that in an emergency situation, I can hand that off to someone else and just be like, hey, I need you to take care of this or whatever else. One huge benefit that I have that I know is not the case for many people is that, first of all, I mean, my business, I have multiple employees, so that it's a lot to manage it all, but it all happens here on the farm. And so as rigid of a schedule as we need to keep for our business to get the work that we need to get done, we also are infinitely flexible. If there's a coyote out there, or if an animal gets caught in a fence or something like that, I can go out and deal with it. If my neighbor needs help, chopping his firewood, or if a power line's on the road and I need to get my tractor and pull it out, like all that stuff can happen within the confines of this. And the other thing too is that my business is actually making content around not just farming, but also my woodworking and other educational pursuits. But yeah, the content kind of supports it. So actually some of those interruptions turn out to be really stuff that we want to share with our audience as well. So it's a juggling act, but it works.
Awesome. So getting back into sustainability a little bit, we hear a lot about the positive side effects of sustainability, right? Like lowering our carbon footprint. But there are also a lot of benefits that people aren't as aware of, like the impact that regenerative agriculture has on our air and soil and water. Can you tell us a little bit about some lesser known benefits to regenerative agriculture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, bare soil is a huge problem. And anytime that you have bare soil, it could either become dusty because the sun beats down on it and it becomes dry, and then wind can blow it away. Or when it rains, then that soil gets washed away, and that top layer of soil, that topsoil, is where plants can grow. So without that, we really get into trouble. So as regenerative agriculture really focuses on basically doing whatever we can to make sure that there's no bare soil. But there's actually so much more besides just covering it up with wood chips or with cover crops or anything else that we can do. And one of the things that I'm so excited about here is we are using animals to essentially create more land. And it's very counterintuitive that you'd be able to actually use animals to make your land better. Right. I mean, I think it's a known thing that, animals poop, and that poop becomes manure. Like that manure gets, can add nutrients to the soil. But right. Beyond that, we do very intensified grazing for very short periods of time. And by moving the animals through, and not just any animals, we're using multiple species of animals. Each one has a different tooth pattern. Each one does their hoof touches the earth a little differently. But all these different species, they move through, they chew the grass, and then we don't bring them back onto that same grass for 28 days. And that allows the grass to regrow all of their manure then gets stirred in by the chickens who come in behind them. The chickens also eat all the ticks and all the flies and all the parasite larvae. So then we don't have to treat our animals for any of that stuff either. But all of that actually makes the soil better. It makes the grass better. And we are essentially, every season that we do that, the land is able to produce more nutrient dense food. So then we're actually able to add more animals to it, which means we're essentially using animals to buy more land. We're expanding our land's ability to raise more food, not by buying more land, but literally just by taking the time that it takes to do these intensive grazing things, which it is very time intensive. So you're definitely, it's not free, but it is financially free.
Yeah, I had no idea that was possible. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I think one of the easiest ways for most people to live a little bit more sustainably is to choose products wisely, right? The products that you're purchasing. So how can we be sure that what we're buying is ethically sourced, and how does purchasing these products directly support the farmers?
Yeah, well, that is an excellent question. One of the best things that we can do is read labels and do independent research. And I think a lot of people are worried about, you know, or maybe are even reticent to even purchase things that have been farmed by U.S. farmers because they just assume that they're going to be more expensive, or, you know, or even that they've been created with factory farms or whatever it is. But one of the best things that you do is read labels, seek out locally grown items as much as possible, and then ask questions. And I interviewed Laurie Isley. I think we're going to show that video soon, and I'm so excited for it. But one of my favorite things that Laurie said is, when in doubt, ask a farmer. Go directly to the source. So yeah, reading labels, doing research, and also just being really careful about where you're researching your things is I think really important too, because there's a lot of, I mean, the internet has lots of information. It also has lots of false information. And so it's really important to look at those labels and also support US farmers as much as possible, because that's how we're going to be able to keep growing food and feed our country.
Absolutely. So I think you've inspired a lot of us to at least start incorporating some of these practices into our daily lives, even if, you know, we don't have the space that you do to have animals and grow our own food. But do you have any last bits of advice for someone who may be thinking about transitioning into the homesteader lifestyle, or, you know, becoming a farmer influencer like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the best advice that I can give anyone is to take stock of what you have and to get started where you're at. The only way that you're ever going to change anything about your current situation is to start doing something. So I lived in Asia for much of my young life. I've lived in high-rise apartments, and I've, you know, in tiny apartments with 3 generations of people living in them. Everywhere you look, there's, you know, people growing in little recycled containers in their windowsills. There's chickens on their balconies. Like, you do not have to live on a farm to eat ethically sourced food. You don't have to be a farmer to support growing food that can actually support a growing population. But if you do want to start farming, start with what you've got. Grab a margarine container, put some dirt in it, put a seed in it, and see what happens. Because if you wait until you have the perfect circumstances, if you wait until you could buy a farm to get started with these things, you're going to be so behind by the time you get started. But also, you're never even going to get started, because chances are, if you don't start now, you won't get started at all.
That is, I feel like, the most inspiring point to end on. So thank you, Anne, so much for all of those tips. It was super fascinating. I want to encourage all of you to follow Anne on social media. She's at Anne of All Trades, and to continue learning more about establishing this deeply rooted life through age-old skills in homesteading, animal care. She shows you a lot of woodworking and so much more. So next up, Anne recently had a chat with fellow farmer Laurie Isley about sustainability farming and lifestyle practices. So we're going to take a look at their conversation. Laurie is a Michigan soybean farmer and the United Soybean Board Farmer Director. So let's see what they had to say.
So I'm here with Laurie Isley, a Michigan soybean farmer and USB farmer director. And can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a Michigan farmer. I was born and raised here, although started out on a livestock and crop farm. And then after I got married, we just raise corn and soybeans now, much more of a grain setup here. And we're in the kind of the lower corner of Michigan. I could do the hand thing. That's what everybody expects, right? So right about there. And I also teach part-time, and I'm a retired agri-science teacher. So lots of different hats, but one of my favorite things to do is certainly to just promote agriculture and to help people understand this incredible industry.
Well, as a fellow homesteader and amateur farmer myself, I'm always interested in hearing about how other farmers got started. And I mean, you already told us a little bit that you grew up on a livestock farm, but can you tell us more about how you got into all this?
Probably one of my favorite memories and an early way that I got certainly involved in promoting agriculture was we would go to the Michigan State Fair, which was held in downtown Detroit, right off of 8 Mile Road, and very unusual, very non-agricultural area. So yeah. we would be there, and then people, of course, from the neighborhoods would come to visit. And so one of the highlights was taking them through the barns, or being able to visit with them in the barns and the hog barn. And also sometimes they would match us with some inner city individuals when we were in 4-H, and we would take them and show them, you know, where they milk the cows and so on. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me when many of them had no clue that any of the products that they get at the grocery store or in their school lunch actually started at a farm. They just thought it started at a grocery store. So that was really when it became apparent to me that we have a story to tell.
I talk to a lot of people who have no experiences on farms or with farmers, and I think a lot of people just kind of think of, you know, your traditional overalls with a pitchfork and actually have no idea what goes on the farm. And I do have overalls, but could you tell me a little bit about what it's like to be a farmer in the modern age?
I would certainly agree with you, Anne, that it's very different than what a lot of people envision, and we probably build on that with many of the stories that we read to kids and some of the songs that we teach them and so on. But there are a lot of things about agriculture that are still very heartwarming. There's still a lot of ways that we still have this love for the land and this passion for the industry. But in many cases, particularly on a farm the size of ours, we have about 1,100 acres or so. There's a lot of large machinery involved, and there's a lot of technology that's involved. And I think many people would be very surprised to hear that over 95% of the farms are family owned. And every farmer that I know that I've ever come in contact with has been a family owned farm. Ours, my husband and I are 5th generation farmers, and our son is already very involved on the farm, and he will be 6th generation. And certainly we have a desire for that to continue to go on beyond this.
So I do a lot of stuff on social media, and so I get a lot of buzzwords thrown my way, and sustainability is a pretty popular one these days, but I don't think very many people actually understand what farmers are actually doing to be sustainable, or what the actual practices behind sustainability actually look like on a farm. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sustainability is definitely a buzzword, and we hear a lot of it. And I think if you asked 10 different people what it meant, you would get 10 very different definitions for it. We spend a lot of time here focusing on sustainability. It's a value for our farm, and it's reflected in a lot of the decisions that we make. When we think of sustainability, we're thinking of how can we continue to farm in a way that is that both supports the farm. I think it's still important that they recognize that you can be sustainable and still be profitable, because otherwise we won't have farmers left. But I think also sustainability is an important thing to remember when we're talking about how do we farm in a way that leaves this farm in at least as good as it is for us now, or hopefully even better for the generations that are to follow. And since we're in a position to have generations that we can see that hopefully will follow, it's really critical for us to keep that in mind. One of the things we do that works really well for us is something called strip tilling. And we also put cover crops on. Over 95% of our land has cover crops on it over the winter. And so that also helps to keep the soil in place. The soil is the lifeblood for the plant. And so if you don't have the richer the soil is, the more you can maintain the organic matter in that soil, the better your crop is going to do as well. So we see it as a win-win. We're trying to make decisions that both strongly benefit the environment, but also benefit us in helping us to farm smarter and better.
In a time where consumers are more disconnected from their food source than ever before, what can we do to support you as farmers, to bridge the proverbial gap between the farm and our dinner plate?
I think there's several different things that consumers can do. And one of the first ones is if you can buy products that originate in the United States. That's certainly a good first step. I'm all in favor too of if you have the ability to grow some of your own food, then by all means grow some of your own food. There's nothing better than a fresh tomato from the garden, first of all. But secondly, it also just gives, I think it's kind of eye-opening. I know at the beginning of COVID, a lot of people decided they'd put gardens in, and a lot of people figured out that it was a lot more work than they anticipated. So sometimes doing that helps people to understand a little better what the farmer deals with. So if you're dealing with insect pests and weeds on your quarter-acre garden, try and multiply that and determine what that's like for those of us that are farming 1,100 acres. And I think it's important too to remember, Anne, that there are lots of different farmings can coexist. I mean, we don't have to have, everything doesn't have to be just one way. There's certainly a place for, there's a place for organic farming. There's a place for conventional farming. And what works for me in Michigan may or may not work for you in Tennessee, or may or may not work out in Nebraska. So it's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Do you think that there are any common misconceptions about soybean farmers in the U.S., and do you have anything to say about them? I
think it's important that we remind people that farmers are still consumers. Even though we are farmers, we also care about what we feed our family. We care about how things are managed around there. We care about how we treat the soil and animals and so on. So it's sometimes easy to just categorize them in a little group and say, okay, they're different than the rest of us, and we're really not. I guess just helping them understand a little bit about why we do what we do. We think soybeans are pretty ideal, and it's exciting that we can use soybeans for so many different things, that we have both the oil and the meal that serve very different purposes. And I think the idea is simply that we just want, just encourage them to go to the source if they have questions, and recognize what it is that farmers do to provide for them, and how that we really take a lot of pride in the fact that we feed so many people, and our ability to become more and more efficient over the past 50 to 75 years is pretty incredible when you look at the ability we now have to feed people both here and abroad. And that's not a responsibility we take lightly. We think it's important that we have a safe product, very important for us to have a nutritious product, and just to make sure that it's raised in a way that does promote sustainability.
So I love talking to another female farmer and another female business owner. Do you have any advice that you would give to other females aspiring to run their own businesses or run their own farms?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be prepared for people to underestimate you, but let it be something that spurs you on instead of discourages you. And find a niche that works for you, but mostly pick an area that you gotta love it if you're gonna be in agriculture. You're not gonna go into it and just say, boy, I think I can make a buck this way, because you're gonna get tired in a hurry. So.
Thank you for that, Laurie and Anne. I am so excited to start incorporating some of those sustainability practices into my own daily routine. And we would love to know, for all of you watching, what eco-friendly habits do you all practice at home? Please let us in the chat. We'd love to discuss it and learn more. So if you haven't already checked it out, we do have the resource section down below. We've got everything from fun facts about soy to share with your friends and followers. We have insight into the many health benefits of soy, and we also have some food waste tips from our next speaker, Chef Joel Gamoran. Now, I'm super excited about our next and final segment. Celebrity chef Joel is here to share his recipe for soy chorizo tacos. So check out that resource section, get your ingredients ready, and follow along to cook with us. I did want to mention too that 3 lucky attendees will also be receiving an always pan from our place, courtesy of She Knows. So keep an eye out for an email for us. So now let's kick it over to Joel and welcome him.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kenzie. And hello, She Knows. So good to be here. Like Kenzie said, I'm Joel. I'm a chef out of here in Seattle, and I'm really known for sustainability and using everything. And I mean everything. So today we're going to talk about a really beautiful recipe that makes the most of not just everything that's in it, but of soy products, which I love. We'll talk about why soy is so sustainable and perfect for this recipe. I know Kenzie gave a little bit of background, but I've been the head chef for Sur La Table for 10 years. And that is my little truck, Pippi. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little VW bus, but I traveled across the country in my cooking show, Scraps, really teaching everyone to use everything and not waste anything. I don't know if you guys know this, but almost half the food in America gets wasted, which is just nutty, considering that 1 out of 8 people go to bed hungry in America. So we're wasting almost half the food. Meanwhile, we have people going to bed hungry. So to me, that was a huge issue, a big inspiration, and it really set me on a path to writing a cookbook, having a cooking show, and really building a platform around sustainability and cooking around food waste. So today we are making soy chorizo tacos. I know a lot of you are cooking along, which is awesome. So I'm going to kind of take my time. I'm going to get you guys into it. I know a lot of us are also content creators and bloggers ourselves. So I'm going to be snapping photos, giving some advice about how I work with particular partners and how sustainability is really storytelling and a lot more than just kind of getting up on a crate and telling people about what we're doing wrong and how to really inspire a movement around it. So I'm really excited. So for this recipe, you got to have a couple of skillets, a little food processor, but besides that, your money in the bank. So step 1 is I get a big skillet, just like this, and I'm going to put it on a medium-high heat. So like, 6 out of 10. And while this is heating up, just because I know, again, we're all creators, I always love to take a picture of everything that's going on. So we're going to take a quick little overhead shot of my ingredients. We'll post that later. You guys know the drill. You guys know how it works. So we're going to let our pan heat up. I feel like with baked goods and things like that, we always let the oven heat up. It's not so much with savory ingredients where we let the pan heat up. So really important to kind of get the pan going. And I'm going to use soy bean oil. This is commonly referred to as vegetable oil. It's neutral in flavor, easy to get. And it's just economical, right? So it also has an amazing smoke point. So I'm going to add about a couple of tablespoons in. You'll see as my pan starts to get hot, it won't smoke as fast as other oils or other fats. So again, it's why I love soybean oil. Now, we're going to talk about saving food here. I look at this whole carrot, and I had a chef in cooking school who said, listen, Joel, anyone can make a steak and make it beautiful, but the real chefs can take the garbage and make that beautiful, which is so true. In the restaurant industry, nothing can go to waste. And at home, we've kind of lost that tool. So it's really been my goal to kind of take it from the chef space and really bring it to the home space. So you have something like a floppy carrot. We've all been used to this, right? You buy carrots at the farmer's market, at the grocery store. You totally forget about it. And then a couple of weeks later, you get one of these. Happens to the best of us. Don't feel bad, but you can still use it. So we're going to click off the tops, which is another big wasted ingredient. You go to the grocery store, you hardly ever see these on the carrots anymore, which is such a bummer. So we're going to use these later. But what I want to start by doing is just cut these carrots up into little chunks. Cool. And I want to put them in my food processor. Right? And then there's a little pulse button. We all know the pulse button. So I'm just going to give it a little pulse. Right? And we're literally, I mean, for those of you guys who know what chorizo is usually a pork sausage, but it's, you know, it's ground pork. So we're kind of going to emulate that with tofu. And it's another soy product that I love. I saw it in the chat. And by the way, at any time, if you guys have a question or a comment, please throw it in the chat. I'll be answering those live during this program. But I saw in the chat that someone was on Weight Watchers and they've been eating a lot of tofu. I've been there. It's phenomenal. And again, just incredibly sustainable because I don't know if you guys know this, soy is the second biggest crop in America. So it does a lot more than just feed us. It's in a lot of different things, car seats, clothing. So we have to support our soy farmers. It's so important. So I'm adding my tofu in. I'm going to pulse this up with the carrot. Hopefully you guys can kind of see the texture. It's starting to kind of look like ground pork, right? Which is kind of the idea. This is what I love about tofu. It just takes on any flavor you throw at it. It's like a chameleon. And then you can see, still not smoking in my pan, which is why I love the soybean oil. So I'm going to add this right in. High heat. Try not to waste anything. You guys know me by now. So take out the blade. Get every last bit. I'm sorry. I'm a stickler, guys. I'm a stickler. All right. Now, I feel like this is another good time for a photo op. So I'm going to get rid of my mixer here so you guys can see a little bit better. Devin, do we have any questions coming in as we kind of cook away? So why tofu is one of the big questions. I love tofu because A, you're supporting soy, which I think is super important, but also because it's so flexible. So it really, if you want to cook Italian, I've made it like a chicken parm, but with tofu. If you want to cook Thai, obviously put it in a beautiful pad Thai or stir fry. So it really takes on anything. And today we're doing Mexican and we're cooking tofu. So it's the chameleon of the kitchen. Is that right? Chameleons change colors. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to take a little picture here. I think, again, we're going to talk about why I'm doing this. The biggest reason why I'm taking pictures kind of through the process is I believe it's really important if you have a platform, like a lot of us do, that when we set off on a campaign to talk about whatever it is, sustainability, a recipe of some sort, you need to highlight your audience. It's not about highlighting you. It's about highlighting your audience. And I work with so many different influencers and chefs and all these types of people who really kind of think that they're the stars when it comes to a campaign, but really it's the people that are the stars. I find out about things when my friends tweet about them or when they Instagram about them. And so you really want to encourage people to cook this, to post this, to celebrate them, because that's what really creates that virality. So really important, and it's a big reason why we're kind of taking the pictures today. All right, so I'm just going to saute this up. All right, the heat is on a 6 out of 10, so about a medium-high heat. And I'm just going to stir this every once in a while. You can add a big pinch of salt in here as well. Just kind of get it going. And now we're going to kind of spike it with chorizo love. So we're going to use all the spices that you would use in normal chorizo, but just kind of put it on our tofu and pimp it up, if you will. So I've got coriander, I've got cumin, I've got garlic, a little bit of dried oregano, smoked paprika, which I love, and cinnamon, which adds a really nice sweetness. But I'm going to hold this up to camera. I'm going to ask you guys, does anyone know what this is? It's kind of brown, chocolatey looking thing. It's our next little food waste food group, which is ground coffee. This is coffee that has already been used. So we've already brewed it. It's spent coffee grounds. I'm going to use a spoonful of this in my spice mixture. So again, we waste so much coffee after we brew coffee. To use the coffee grounds is a really smart way to take full advantage of it. It gives you this kind of chocolatey, mole, kind of rich, beautiful vibe that I absolutely love. So I'm adding this to the mixture. I'm going to kind of stir this up. Smells already really good in this bowl. And again, if you guys want the recipe, She Knows has it, so you absolutely can grab it. I would love to see you guys making it. And then I'm just going to shake this in over my tofu and give it a good once through, right? And just kind of keep toasting it. You can see the color is changing. And right as those spices hit my soybean oil, you smell them. I mean, it is so fragrant. It's beautiful. All right. So another thing that kind of while this is crisping up that a lot of people talk to me about is brands that I work with. And I think we live in a day today where a lot of people, and when I mean people, I mean brands, are greenwashing. And I think we know what greenwashing means. It means that they say they're sustainable, but they're not necessarily sustainable. And for someone like me, who's a storyteller of sustainable brands, it's important that you really vet these brands out. You know, I go through a long process with my team and by myself. I do the reading, I do the research, I meet with the potential brand over and over and over again. And I'll tell you right now, no one is 100% sustainable. Because what does sustainable really mean, right? I work with an amazing brand called Imperfect Foods, which saves food that would normally go to waste, and it delivers it to people's doorsteps. And they get knocked all the time for the craziest reasons, right? So every partner is going to have kind of a side that you're going to need to defend, and you need to be ready to define them. You have to dive super, super deep into the minutia and understand what is it that you're taking a stand for, because no one's going to forget about it. It's like running for president. You know, something will resurface in 3 years and they'll be like, oh, you represented that brand. And so you want to be proud of that. And that's really important to me, and a big reason why I've teamed up with Soy for a couple of years now, because they do represent sustainability to me, you know, being just an amazing, amazing source of protein, but at the same time, being the backbone of what I believe is farmers here in America. So we're cooking this up. And speaking of soy, I'm going to do a little secret here. Soy sauce. I love soy sauce in this. It brings a little umami, a little richness, a little saltiness, and it gets everyone thinking, Joel, what did you put in there? I never tell them. It's my little secret. But just a splash of soy, literally like a tablespoon, all you need, and really makes a difference. So I'm going to cook that in and just, again, continue to kind of crisp that soy chorizo. Delicious. While that, oh, one more ingredient. Sorry, I forgot. This is chipotle that you can find in a can. I mean, they're like 99 cents, $1.99. So I have 2 little chipotle peppers, a couple teaspoons of the liquid. It comes in, and again, it just gives you this smoky, beautiful, rich vibe. So that's going right in. Oh my gosh, I forgot one more. Tomato paste. All right, tomato paste is going in as well. Tomato paste, just for you guys who don't know, is they take canned tomatoes in Italy, they put them on a table, like they literally pour it out onto a table outside, and they spread it really thin, like into a big sheet of tomato, and the sun dries it out, and it becomes this really concentrated, you guys can see as I squeeze it in here to the actual pan, really concentrated tomato vibe, which gives just this amazing kind of caramel richness to a sauce, to a soup, or in this case, it's like a little stir fry. So I'm going to mix this in. Devin, do we have any questions that came in while I've been messing around? Yeah, Angelica says she's also been struggling with considering sustainable brands. It's hard, you guys. And the reality is I'm just telling you, there's 2 sides to every story. So you have to understand, why are they sustainable? What are they saying when they mean they're sustainable? Because it needs to line up with your definition. If it doesn't line up with your values, A, you're not going to be able to defend it and make content against it that's organic, but B, you're not going to be able to take a stand when the time really comes, which it does come. All right, so my chorizo continues to do its thing with the tomato paste, with my chipotle in there. And now we're going to do a fun little mashup. So I'm going to take those carrot tops, and right on my board here, I'm going to chop these up. Carrot tops are the parsley, I said, of 2020. So I'm going to say it was the parsley last year. but they're so delicious. The stems, the tops, everything is amazing and totally not worth wasting. So I'm chopping that up, putting it in a little pile. I also have some cilantro. And every recipe I feel like says, pick the cilantro off the stem. Guys, the stem rocks. It's sweet, it's crunchy, it's loaded with potential. So I'm just gonna cut up my cilantro stems really nice and fine. Do not throw those away. I'm gonna save the leaves for later. It's got about a handful of cilantro, right? So I've got cilantro stems, and I've got a little bit of carrot tops, and I've got an avocado. We're gonna just do a really quick little topper for these tacos. So I'm literally opening up my avo, give it a quick twist. Best way to open up an avocado is give it a little knife hit, but don't use your hands. You'll slip and cut yourself. So you can use another taco if you want. Get scrappy. A lot of people, when they ask me about, what does scrappy mean? Because my show is called Scraps. My cookbook is called Cooking Scrappy. So to me, scrappy is really a lifestyle. This, where you guys are looking, this is my garage. I wasn't using this. We would pull our car in here every once in a while, but I wasn't using this. And now it's become a total film studio due to the pandemic. And it's been awesome. So to me, it's scrappy just getting in here and turning this garage, which was kind of overlooked before, into something. And this little truck over here, which is in my show, we call her Pippi. She was trash. She was a VW van that didn't even run. And we felt like if we fixed her up and we turned her into kind of a mobile kitchen, we could kind of represent the movement just by what we were driving. So being scrappy is using the most of what you got. And sometimes that means just grabbing a tortilla. Oh. All right. So Samantha wants to know, how do I define sustainable products? So for me, I have a very low-hanging fruit on this because I believe that most of America have a really tough time just getting whole fruits, vegetables, and beautiful product to their table. So for me, as long as it is a raw product, so it is a chicken that is raised thoughtfully with care, and it's I do care about animal rights, so that matters to me. It's tofu or it's soy, where it supports all farmers. I mean, if you're the second biggest grown crop in America, that is a lot of farmers that you are supporting. So for me, that's sustainability in itself, right? So every brand has a different story. I work with Sir Kensington's, which is kind of like a ketchup and a mayo and a condiment company who puts better ingredients into theirs. I look into those ingredients. I make sure that there's something that I would want to eat, that I'd want to serve my family. My kid loves soy products, right? Absolutely loves them. Soy oil is neutral. It's really easy on his tummy. And so for me, is it something that I would serve my family, or is it something that I'm just kind of getting up there and hawking? And that's something you got to be really serious about. Oh, someone asked me, what about getting kids to eat what? Oh, soy products. So what is it like for getting kids to eat soy products? I think it's one of the easiest things in the world. Like I said, soy is so malleable, and kids, they have more taste buds than adults. So to have something like soy, where it's very low on flavor, you can turn that flavor into pretty much anything. I think it's genius. It's got amazing nutrients. So to me, it's a complete protein that you should be serving your kids. All right, now to this avocado and my carrot tops, I'm going to roll on my lime. I'm going to do a little bit of lime zest over this. You can't waste the zest, guys. Use the whole lime. Right? And you can just chop through with just a squeeze of lime right on the board here. No need to get a bowl dirty or anything like that. A little salt over the top. Literally just chop through. You're kind of making like a quick little guac right on the board. And I love this. I think this is so rustic. This is what cooking to me is all about. It's a little messy. It's a little free form, right? It's not so precise. This is what I love about cooking. All right. So question, can we do anything with the avocado pit? The answer is no. You can throw it in the garden. I've worked with the avocado board before, and I've asked them the same question. A lot of fitness people were saying, oh, you can dry out the avocado pit in the oven and then blend it into smoothies. The answer is the avocado board does not approve of that. So The answer is it's good for the garden, so definitely compost it, but shouldn't go on your belly. All right, I'm grabbing all. Look at this beautiful avocado with the carrot stems, the lime. I'm going to give it a quick dry. I have to. Perfect. Could dip a chip in there. I also have some soy yogurt. We don't do dairy in our house. It kind of hurts our stomach. We love soy milk, soy yogurt. So I'm literally going to just do a squeeze of lime in here, pinch of salt, and this is going to act as kind of like our crema, if you can imagine, right? It's kind of like your sour cream. So got my soy yogurt spiked with some lime. I've got my cilantro. I've got my little avocado mash. Now, how many of us have ever opened up the freezer and found that we have freezer burned or stale tortillas? A lot of us. I'm totally included in that. So stale tortillas are something you can absolutely save. And I would do this whether or not these tortillas were stale, but I'm just going to get a cast iron skillet on a medium-high heat, and I'm just going to toast these tortillas, and they kind of just bring them back to life. You can give a little soy oil in there if you want, but you don't need to, honestly. Just get them a little char. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, I am a sustainability storyteller. You can call me that. And when I first got my show, Katie Couric signed on to be an executive producer. She's been a big mentor of mine. And I think Katie Couric is a storyteller, a legendary storyteller. And she gave me some advice that I'll never forget, which is don't lead with sustainability. So as someone with a platform, which a lot of you guys have, and then you team up with a brand or you're representing someone who wants to tell their sustainability story, people don't connect with that. People connect, it's just like food. People eat with their eyes first, and then you can kind of tell them, oh, I snuck in some cauliflower into that. It's the same thing with sustainability storytelling. Don't go off and say, hey, I'm using these organic tomatoes because they're organic and organic and organic. No. Start with, I'm going to make a really beautiful soup. You guys are going to love this. It's amazing with grilled cheese. And oh, by the way, it happens to be organic, and I really love this brand. So always make sure you lead when you're storytelling with the sexiest part, which for people is the food. That's what people connect to. And then you can kind of weave in your sustainability storytelling. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, someone wants to know about using metal spoon in this pan. Guys, this is a pan that I love. It's called Scan Pan. So it's a nonstick pan that you can use metal on. Scan, SCAN pan. I love them. They're great. PFOA free, meaning there's no chemicals. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of nonsticks these days make it totally safe to use metal on. It's kind of back in the day of the Calphalon when it was no bueno. All right, so I've got some tortillas toasting. I'm going to do 2 more, and then I'm going to show you guys how to plate this all up. Devin, any more questions coming out? I think we're pretty good. All right, I love it. Now, a couple of people asked, do I serve this to my kids, or what about soy with kids? I also forgot to mention that soy is loaded with 9 amino acids. So again, if you're worried about health, if you're worried about any of that, soy is the place to turn. It brings it. And speaking of that, check out this, you guys. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Can we do a close-up? Oh, hold on. We're going to find it. There we go. Awesome. So there is my soy chorizo. At this point, it is done. You would not know the difference. I mean, look at this. Crispy, smoky, absolutely stunning. And it does what soy does so well, which is it lets other ingredients be the star, and it's a carrier, and it really enhances it. So I love that. So chorizo is done. Tortillas are toasted and saved from being stale. And now we're in a perfect spot to assemble. So I am going to kind of just make sure we're nice and clean. I'm going to lay out my little tortillas here. All right, I'm going to do 4, I think. There's my little avocado one. I love it. All right, so here's how I plate this up, you guys. I grab a ton of this soy chorizo, and I just go right in the middle of each one of these and kind of over-index, right? I mean, come on. This is good stuff. And again, I want to reiterate, you guys are going to get the recipe. So if you want to make this at home, you can, and you should feel proud about doing that as well. I know a lot of you guys write recipes and give advice about lifestyle. I really want you guys to get behind these tacos because they're magical. They really are. You don't miss the meat at all. And they're really good for you. So I've got our little chorizo, soy chorizo out. I'm going to put just a dollop of the avocado with the carrot stems. And remember, we saved the coffee grounds in the chorizo. Right? Oh, look how good that looks. And then I just grab a bowl. This is how I plate it up. I just kind of pinch the ends, put it in the bowl, grab another one, pinch the ends. Tacos are always tough because they just want to fall open, but you want to let them look pretty, right, guys? You got to eat with your eyes first. So I just kind of open them up. Oh, this looks great. One more here. Oop, get back here. All right. And then don't forget we have kind of our spiked soy yogurt. So I'm going to grab a little bit of that and just kind of give it a little Jackson Pollock drizzle from up top. I love this. And to me, this screams sustainability. I mean, again, the answer of what does sustainability mean to you is a personal question. And for me, it's waste-free. It's supporting the environment, whatever that means. If that means the economy, if that means global warming, all that matters. So to me, this just screams everything I want to eat and feel good about eating. And then I'm going to grab a little bit more of that cilantro, stick it on top, kind of just scatter it. And you have, I think, a very proud dish, very happy dish that I think anyone would love to dive headfirst into. See if I can hold this up so everyone can see. Ooh, that looks pretty. Hopefully you guys are sitting in front of your own tacos, and then you guys know, again, we're creators, right? So I want to make sure that other people make this. So I'm going to kind of go up top here, do a nice little hero shot of these guys. Because why not? Oh, these look so good. These would be really good with a little scrambled egg, a little breakfast taco situation. But there you have it. Soy Chorizo Tacos. It's all about sustainability. It's all about simplifying sustainability. And we really want you guys to post about it. So make sure to hashtag simplifying sustainability. I also want you guys to hashtag at Joel Gamoran and then Soy Connection Partners. So hashtag simplifying sustainability, Soy Connection Partner, and at Joel Gamoran. And we would all love to share whatever you make. Hopefully it's something as beautiful as this. But I just want to say thank you to She Knows for having me. Thank you to Soy Connection, who I have loved and adored being their partner for many years now. And with that, back to Kenzie.
Joel, thank you so much. Those tacos look amazing. I am so hungry.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to try them. I also want to mention to you, I host a cooking series on She Knows, and I think we need to do an episode together. You know,
I'm feeling a collab, Kenzie. I'm feeling a collab.
Yeah. Okay, so don't forget, everyone, we've got that full recipe and lots of other great information for you all down in the resource section. So as we wrap up today, I would like to extend a massive thank you to the soybean farmers working toward a more sustainable future through eco-friendly practices, and our farmers at Soy Connection, and to all of you for tuning in today. So please stay in touch. Follow us at She Knows, follow Anne, follow Joel, and please let us know how you are all simplifying sustainability at home. Thanks, guys.